Hi there, I am Dr. Lara Ervin-Kassab. I am an assistant professor in teacher education at San Jose State University, and this video is about what is social emotional learning and how might it look online. So here we go. So social emotional learning is basically what it sounds like. It is about how are we fostering the development of social skills and emotional skills in our students and ourselves. So why do we need social emotional learning? Well, I'm going to probably refer to myself a lot in this video as exemplars. So I'll go ahead and just be completely honest right off the bat. I am not, by nature, a good communicator. My family is great at communicating about humor and communicating about lighthearted things, but when it comes to really getting down and communicating feelings or deep thoughts, it's kind of a struggle. And if we think about many of us across the world, we may not have had explicitly been taught communicating and connecting. It's kind of implicit, but then we run into problems with communicating outside of just our family. Additionally, how many of us have either experienced or heard or seen the assumption that students can self-regulate right out of the bat? So you see an older person talking to a younger person and they say, hey, just control yourself, right? Without necessarily saying, okay, here's how you control yourself. So social emotional learning in schools is really about helping our students get those skills. And ultimately, those skills come down to this. We don't need grit in education. We need strategies. Just telling us to, pull up our pants and push on through isn't helping us actually be able to have the strategies to cope with all of the things that are coming at us. And especially right now, as we're experiencing a pandemic, we really need strategies for how to persevere through this, how to reach out to each other, how to connect, how to stay sane. And just saying that we need to improve our grit isn't necessarily something that's going to help as much as actually explicitly teaching and learning strategies for these things. So then what is SEL again? It's social emotional learning. Emphasis here is on the word learning. We really need to provide students with tools to understand themselves, to manage their relationships. It's something that we all need to really focus on as far as learning. So when we're thinking about incorporating social emotional learning into our content, it can't just be, well, I'm going to pick a topic that kids will be social about. We have to think about the same structures that we put in place for learning about mathematics or literature or how to do artwork or how to do music or physical education. All of those structures that we use to explicitly teach, those things are also things we need to think about including for social emotional learning. The good news is we can integrate a lot of social emotional learning into content. So in mathematics here in the United States, we have a thing called the mathematical practices. One of those mathematical practices is perseverance. So when we're teaching our students how to complete complex math tasks, we can integrate social emotional learning by giving them coping strategies like positive self-talk and how to work through a problem. We can give those things to them when we think about social emotional learning as an integrated piece of the lesson. So that sounds great, and I can see how I can do all that face-to-face, but now I am sitting here in a shelter-in-place in California, so how do I bring these things into my online classroom? Well, first and foremost, I teach a class in how to manage a classroom, and we have been now in shelter-in-place for a couple weeks. We're going to be through the rest of the semester, and I've been faced with the challenge of how do I teach my students how to manage a classroom when we don't have an actual classroom. And one of the first things that I found is I started accidentally opening up my class synchronous session like 20 minutes before class started just to get everything organized. And my students were coming in early. They were coming in early to socialize with one another. Right now, they miss being able to hear voices of people that they're not with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They need that time to socialize. So I've opened up my class. We need to make sure, even in an online environment, that we're providing that time to socialize. You do want to have some general questions so that when students come in, if there's nothing but silence, nothing's in the chat, nothing's happening in voice, you can put something in there that'll prompt them to engage with each other. They need to have structured norms and explicit instruction in online environments. Those things we set up in the classroom do not automatically transfer into online environments. And in fact, every time you use a new platform or tool, you need to re-establish those structured norms and explicitly instruct them in how to work in there. We need to provide space for students to reflect and then share feelings and ideas. The emotional in the online environments, mindfulness, I have a whole podcast on that you can watch on this channel. We need to provide opportunities for students to self-monitor and to reflect, and we need to give them the tools to self-manage. If this is helping them learn how to calendar and set goals, if it's learning how to have a moment where they stop before they react, all of these things are things we need to help our students learn to do. So there are some places out there that you can find a whole lot of really great resources for social and emotional learning. And these two places that I'm about to recommend to you, much of what they've done has been really designed for face-to-face, but they have both got a lot of resources being created and posted for online work now. So I strongly recommend CASEL. And at the end, you'll see a link to their website. The CASEL framework is what we talk about when we talk about SEL. These are the skill areas that we want to develop in our students. There are 5 of them, and you can see them here as nested within classrooms, schools, and homes and communities. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here with what could these 5 things look like online. So when we're looking at social awareness, how are we helping our students think about context when they don't have body language clues, when they don't have facial expressions to be able to see? How are we helping them attend to tone? How are we helping them share the space in the chat or in the verbal classroom? When we look at relationship skills, how are we helping students learn how to choose their words and refine their communication so they can build those relationships? How do we get them to reach out? Especially right now, there's not a, hey, I was just walking down the street and there were some kids playing, so I went over and played. We need to help them figure out how to reach out for what they need, not only from their friends, but from their families and the people they live with. Finding common ground and collaborating. So if you take a moment to read through the rest of this slide, you can go ahead and pause. These are all different ideas for how each of these pieces, just keep in mind, these are the things we're teaching the students to be able to do in the class. There are a lot of ideas here. The second resource that I want to share with you is the Center for Reaching and Teaching the Whole Child. This particular group of anchor competencies are actually what we as teachers want to integrate into our practice so that we can help students foster their social and emotional skills. So there are a total of 7 anchor competencies. I strongly recommend that you go to the CRTWC website and check out. They've got a lot of great resources there. They even have a summer institute, so if you want to delve in and learn more, you can attend that. There's a link at the end of this presentation. But we can think about, how are we building relationships? What are our skills? How are we incorporating those chat prompts to connect students to one another? How are we thinking about our instruction and making sure that we're including some team building when we have whole and small group activities? How are we providing space for the social? So what I'd recommend is, for this slide and the next, just pause the video, read over these ideas, and then post any questions, comments, or additional resources that you can think of in the comments at the end of the video. So here are the other three. These are a little more detailed, a little more in depth. So what could this application of social emotional learning look like online? When we look at online teaching, we have synchronous and asynchronous instruction. So in asynchronous instruction, when we are giving our students something to do on their own and come back to us, the assignments can promote voice, choice, and sustain multiple cultures. The more freedom we give our students to be able to give us a variety of ways of showing what they know, the more it actually reinforces social emotional learning, them having to think about, well, how can I do this? How can I be creative? What are my skills and strengths? Along with that, inquiry-based and guided reflection are both critical components to an SEL kind of classroom. Giving really rapid feedback and accurate and detailed feedback on draft work and ideas in time for the students to be able to modify their products helps with self-efficacy. It helps with self-monitoring. It helps with students understanding what it is that they're doing really well. So we do need to, in an online environment, attend to giving that feedback quickly. In synchronous environments, it's just reminding ourselves we have to continue to do norm setting. We can do this collaboratively, or we can provide ground rules. We need to have activities that are developing skills and strategies for building the relationships. There's a reason we're meeting together online. We need to make sure that that time that we're online together actually leverages that. And finally, when you're engaging students in collaborative work in defined roles, in breakout rooms or in small group instruction, make sure that that work is really collaboratively. It's not just, did you get an answer to number one? Did you get an answer to number two? But something where their ideas build on each other, where they have to create something together. So here's a quick list of resources: the CASEL resource, the Center for Teaching and Reaching the Whole Child, and Common Sense Media also has some great resources on social and emotional learning. Finally, none of us is as strong as all of us, so please post resources or ideas in the comments section below this video. Please consider accessibility and feasibility in your suggestions. Thank you very much.